breaking news came this month when Google and Twitter struck a deal to put real-time tweets back into Google's search index. This means that your tweets, the news you're talking about on Twitter, may show up in search engine results on Google. Other social media sites such as Facebook and LinkedIn don't afford this benefit. The value here for professional services firms is more opportunity to be found online and the chance to drive more business through Twitter than ever before. With this new marketing landscape set to go into effect, now is the time to get started. Both companies are mum about the specific details in terms of timing, but you'll want to be in position and be ready to go. Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. My name is Erica Hess, Account Manager with Berbay Marketing and Public Relations. Berbay works with professional services firms such as law firms, accounting firms, real estate companies, and more to increase their visibility and enhance their credibility to drive new leads. Throughout the webinar today, you'll have an opportunity to submit questions using there should be a box where you can submit a question. If we have time at the end, I'll try to get to all the questions, but if not, I will certainly follow up with everybody individually to answer questions. There's a common misconception that Twitter is reserved for celebrities or teenagers. It's easy to dismiss it as a productivity killer, but the truth is that Twitter is employed as a significant marketing tool by major universities, airlines, banks, and even, yes, professional services firms like yourselves. If you're not already on it, consider starting. If you already have a Twitter presence, it's time to ramp up. You might be asking yourself right now how you ended up on a webinar about Twitter. What about Facebook and LinkedIn? I thought those were the most important, and I just started focusing on those. While those are still important, Twitter is really making a splash in the professional services industry and has proven that it has tremendous staying power. Okay, so we know the significance, and now what is Twitter? Twitter is an online social networking service that enables users to send and read short 140-character messages. It is often referred to as microblogging. You can see here from these statistics that Twitter is not only thriving but growing at a very rapid pace. It's one of the top 10 most visited internet sites. It has 270 million active users, and 40% of people who follow a company on Twitter will also visit their website. Twitter has become one of the most disruptive new mediums lately, given its ability to provide real-time information and engage followers. With Twitter in your tool belt, the value is really endless. I've included a few things here, but I could really go on for days in terms of talking about the value. The first thing I want to emphasize is you have the ability to extend the shelf life of your news, whether that's lawsuit filings, deals done, firm successes, or new hires. Twitter is another marketing vehicle to get your firm's news and message out, in addition to your website, your newsletter, your other social media profiles. Firms can position their professionals as experts to the media through Twitter. And I know this sounds crazy, but with reporters and journalists being flooded with a mass amount of email every day with people trying to get interview opportunities or publish articles, they're now turning to Twitter to hunt down experts to interview for stories. So if you have an idea for a story, for example, you want the LA Business Journal to interview you on the current real estate market in Los Angeles, why not tweet it at them versus sending them an email, which will likely go unnoticed? With more than 1 billion tweets sent out per week, yes, that's 1 billion, Twitter is the ultimate news source, and it's often an underutilized tool when it comes to due diligence. Firms can monitor so many things on Twitter, like what's being said about their clients and their respective industry, what's being said about your own firm. And you can also gather competitive intelligence to level the playing field with your competition. So next time that you're going to Google, for example, to do some research before you meet with a potential client, or you're looking at your competition to see how you can keep up with them, I recommend looking at Twitter as your search engine. So laying a solid foundation for your profile is critical for the success of your really presence on Twitter. You want to be sure that it communicates a consistent message that is aligned with other marketing vehicles like your website. Creating a profile is free and it's very easy to do by going to twitter.com. They walk you through all the steps. You can be set up and running within a matter of minutes. You'll want to choose a username that includes some version of your firm name so that it's easily identifiable. You might consider a shortened version of your firm name if it's really long. You might also consider incorporating keywords into your username to increase your chances of being found on Google, like we talked about earlier. So for example, if you were a real estate litigation firm, you might incorporate the words real estate into the name. Your bio, which you can see here on we're showing a Latham & Watkins sample profile, this is your elevator pitch. You get 160 characters here. Be sure that it quickly conveys what you do and the audience you serve. Forget the fluff and work in the most pertinent information, such as your services and clients. For the firm's profile picture, use your logo or some kind of iteration of it so that, again, it's immediately identifiable when somebody lands on your profile. They're able to identify it as being you. And you can see that they have their logo right here. And then back here, they have a custom header design, which is a great feature of Twitter because it allows you to work in kind of a more design aspect, and you can match it to the family in terms of design of your website or other marketing materials you might have. So again, looks like they have some kind of picture of a highway. You might consider a picture of your team. I know that's what we have on our Berbay profile, but something that's attention-getting here and makes people stop and say, okay, I want to look at this. All right, tweets, retweets, hashtags, usernames. I've heard all this jargon about Twitter, and it really has developed its own language in a sense that is now part of the American culture. So once you join the Twitter world, or if you're already in it, there are some basic jargon that you will hear that will be helpful to understand. The first is a username, which is on the far left. You'll see everybody has one. It's typically, or it is signified by the @ symbol. So anytime you see a username, you'll see the @ symbol before it. So for example, our username is @Berbay Corp. And then you have a tweet, which is a public message of 140 characters that is posted on Twitter. And you can see here the 140, so it'll count down once you start typing there. You have a retweet, which is a reposting of a message from somebody else. So if you see something on Twitter that may be, an article that your client posted that you want to retweet, you can simply click that button on Twitter and it will go out to your audience. The next is a reply. So you can basically have public conversations with people on Twitter using their username, which again is signified by the @ symbol. And then there's hashtags. What Twitter is really all about, and I'm sure all of you have heard something regarding hashtags. Hashtag is simply a pound symbol and then words behind it. This tracks conversations or topics on Twitter. So if we were talking about legal marketing, we might do hashtag legal marketing. Then you have a favorite. This refers to a topic or subject that a user is most interested in. So when you favorite something on Twitter, Twitter takes that information into account and displays like information that you might be interested in based on what you've favorited in the past. And then lastly, you have a direct message. So you can private message anybody that that follows you on Twitter to carry out a private conversation. So I know this is a lot, and I don't want to overwhelm you with it, so I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the lingo used in the Twitter world. So a common mistake that people make on Twitter is that they set up a profile and they think they're done. Well, the whole point of Twitter is to obtain followers. Without followers, your presence is basically non-existent. There are several options for developing your base of followers. First, follow others. It is not only important to gain followers, but just as important to follow others in your industry. This will also increase the likelihood that these users will follow you back. start by compiling a list of clients, relevant associations or organizations, news networks such as Associated Press or CNN, or specific reporters at those publications that cover a beat aligned with your industry. Second, include a link to your firm's Twitter account on all of your online properties, such as your website, your email signature, your newsletters. This will generate natural followers who likely already have a connection with you. So some of you might have, a link to your LinkedIn profile, or maybe if you have a firm Facebook, that's where you'd want to include a link for the Twitter account. Now, if you're looking for quick growth opportunities, which can oftentimes be the case, there are paid tools like Twitter Counter and Twello that can take you from 0 followers to 10,000 followers in a matter of minutes, of course, depending on how much you're willing to pay. But there's different increments along there. And you can target specific business categories or geographical areas. So if you're looking, for example, in Los Angeles specifically, you can target it that way. So you're not getting, it's more focused. It's not, okay, I'm just going to buy 10,000 people and I have, absolutely no idea where they're going to come from. Another great one is WeFollow. WeFollow is an aggregate of various industries that you could follow, and it ranks them based on their prominence. So for example, in the legal category, Legal Times, LexisNexis, and Lawyerist are all ranked in the top 5 for their prominence. Prominence being they're very active, they have a lot of followers, they've been a part of Twitter for a long time. They're almost kind of, call it Twitter celebrities, if you will. But this gives you a great list in terms of, publications that you want to follow, or maybe it's, prominent figures in the U.S. So the WeFollow is a great tool. So again, I really want to emphasize the importance of your following. So I know there might be excitement after this webinar. Okay, I'm going to get a Twitter profile set up and get going, but it's really all about the followers. So after you get your profile set up, make this your #1 priority. There's a lot of noise on Twitter. I said earlier there's over 1 billion tweets sent out per week. So how do you break through that clutter and not let all of that noise silence you? Well, breaking through the clutter can really be a challenge, but the ability to craft the perfect tweet that will get noticed and that will engage your followers is within reach. So before you get started on Twitter, before you even sign up for an account, take some time to just listen and observe. Without a Twitter profile, you can still go on and see the news feed and see what's going on. So research your competitors, gain some insight on what kind of content they're posting and how they're positioning themselves. And remember that there's no right or wrong way to do any of this. Think of it as a more trial and error. There are no rules on how often you should post, but I would recommend starting with a small frequency, like once a day or once a week, and go from there. A lot of people think that Twitter is like, I just have to devote my life to it and send out, be on Twitter every second, sending something out to keep up. The key here is quality and consistency rather than quantity. So if once a day or once a week, if you know that's going to work for you and you can be consistent with it, stick to that. And another rule to mind when it comes to content is that it should really be more client-focused rather than being all about the professional service firm. There are exceptions to this rule, of course. You'd want to get the word out about firm news or things like that, but you don't want the promotional content to trump the more educational content. Crafting the perfect tweet. So what is in a tweet? How do I get these 140 characters of text noticed? Well, crafting the perfect tweet is a lot easier than you might think. You might have to, when you start out, you might have to draft a tweet a few times in order to end up with something compelling that also fits within the character limit. As you write your tweet, incorporate the following to the extent that you can, and use your best judgment so that you don't end up with a tweet full of hashtags. As I mentioned earlier, hashtags are the hallmark of Twitter. This is what makes the news you are talking about searchable to the world. For professional services firms using Twitter, hashtags are often an afterthought. They've already written out their tweet, and then they notice they have a few characters left, and they say, oh, I got to throw a hashtag in. One method to avoid this is to develop a list of 10 to 15 keywords that you think clients would search for your firm online. Make sure anyone who is tweeting on behalf of the firm has a copy of that list and is actively using it in their tweets. Keep your tweets to 120 to 130 characters. Yes, I know that's under the 140 character limit, and you're probably already thinking, how am I going to say something in less than 140 characters? But I guarantee you it's doable. Keep it short and sweet. I mean, it's, the difference of reading, a one-page article versus a 5-page article. You want to grab somebody's attention right away. You want to entice them to read your tweet or click on a link. So think about posting some kind of question, maybe a checklist, a teaser to an article. What is going to draw people in, make them visit your website, make them open the link? And when you're drafting your tweet, try to avoid industry jargon as much as possible and make sure that it's relatable to your audience. So if you have to dumb down the material a bit in order to make it relatable, that's totally fine. We're naturally attracted to content that has photos. This is what makes us stop and look twice at something. Tweets with photos have the highest tendency to be viewed. When you can, incorporate a photo that aligns with the subject matter you are talking about to engage your audience. Also, if you have the ability to link to YouTube videos, your post has the potential for a 75% higher share rate from your followers, which is pretty tremendous. And also, lastly, link to third-party websites whenever possible. For example, if you're sharing an article from Forbes, include a link. And the great thing is that most news websites these days, which you've probably seen, make this process really simple. So if you're, next time you're on, say, Associated Press or Wall Street Journal reading an article, if you look in the top right-hand corner, you'll most likely see a button that says share on Twitter. You'll also probably see share on Facebook, share on LinkedIn. You can click that button. You can write your own personal message, and you're sending that link directly out to your followers. So now that you're equipped to draft the perfect tweet, don't end up tongue-tied and not know what to talk about. So here's a few ideas for what your professional service firm could be talking about. Keep in mind that I think the misconception that a lot of people have is Twitter is updates like, I just bought a new pack of gum, or I'm going to the swimming pool. And yes, well, there's people out there who don't use it the right way. There's definitely some great ways to share educational content on Twitter. Thought leadership updates are a great place to start. You can, again, include a link to an article that you think might be educational for your followers and, write some kind of personal message along with it. Or this could be an article that your firm published. Maybe one of the professionals wrote an article and you're blasting that out on Twitter. So that's really considered thought leadership material, and that's more of the educational content, which is what you want to focus on the most. And then you have your more promotional content like firm news. This might be awards or recognitions, new hires, new service offerings. This type of content should be done more sparingly compared to the educational content, but it should still be talked about on Twitter. Developing a Twitter calendar is a great way to help systematize your efforts. So for example, on Monday, you're posting a helpful tip. On Tuesday, you're featuring a client in call it a client spotlight. On Wednesday, you're doing an industry experts feature, and so on and so forth. But by having this, kind of in place in terms of what you're going to be talking about each week, it takes the pressure off coming up with something on the spot almost. And then you have automated content, and I'll just touch on this real quick. There's different tools and plugins out there that will basically keep your Twitter account alive and active even when you're not able to tweet once a day or once a week. Well, there's definitely a lot of value to this. Automated content should not be the only type of material you are pushing out. So there's two plugins I just wanted to share with you real quick. The first is called Twitter Feed. You can basically link your Twitter account to your favorite blogs and push out their content when something new is posted. The second one is called Tweet Old Posts. This is a plugin that goes with your website and searches your blog archives and tweets out old blog posts. So, for example, Berbay has a blog. We post several times a week, so it would take content from our blog and automatically push it out on our behalf. There's a lot of other tools like this, and this is really kind of a more advanced portion, but I just wanted to share with you that there is an option for automated content. So with anything, there's always something to make life a little bit easier and less overwhelming for beginners and even the more experienced users on Twitter. There's a few tools that you may have heard about, and these are probably among hundreds of tools that are out there for Twitter, but I think these are the three most beneficial to at least know about. If you're just getting started on Twitter, I wouldn't say you need these tools right away, but it is helpful to just bear in mind that there's things out there like these tools. The first one is Hootsuite. Hootsuite allows you to monitor your social media presence on Twitter as well as other social media sites. So you get analytics such as how many people have clicked on the links you've shared, how many people have viewed the photos that you're sharing, and it really gives you the more in-depth analytics on Twitter that you're not getting directly from Twitter. So it's a great tool. And then there's TweetDeck, which is a desktop Twitter management tool. It has similar features to Hootsuite, but TweetDeck provides more refined searches, the ability to manage multiple accounts if you're, if each practice group within your firm has their own Twitter or something like that. And then Bitly, the last one, which is probably one of my favorites, is a URL shortener. So the 140-character limit includes links. So if you have a really long link that you want to share, for example, something from the Wall Street Journal, and it's 140 characters in and of itself, you can go to bit.ly.com, bitly.com, enter the URL that you want to shorten, and it will give you a very condensed, like 8-character version of that URL. So you'll probably see a lot on Twitter that people share shortened URLs either from Bitly, or there's a few other companies that do it. So if you're interested in any of these, I'd encourage you to check out their website, take a look, see if it's something that you think would be a benefit for you. After today's webinar, I know we all understand the importance of Twitter for professional services firms. I'm confident that we're going to go out and, for firms that don't already have a Twitter presence, set up an account today, or firms that already have a presence, go back to the drawing board and see how we can ramp it up. And I know that with a little focus and practice, we can all be professional tweeters. So I'm going to be looking for all of you on Twitter very soon. Please mark your calendar for our next webinar presented by Berbay's principal, Sharon Berman. She'll be discussing how to produce and package your niche practice on Thursday, March 19th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I hope you found it useful. I think we're out of time, but I'll respond to any questions via email. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.